Here is the production story for my graduate film, Muse. The initial concept for this short film stems from the struggle of finding a purpose in life. Some people panic and submerge themselves in thought. The idea of a shapeshifter as a protagonist emerges from the moral of the story. Don't wear the skin of others, just be yourself. This fits well because shapeshifters are known for posing as other people and hiding their true identities. The story would consist of a shapeshifter seeking a purpose by morphing into other people and taking on their roles in life. However, he can't seem to find the suitable life he wants to live. The more he tries to fill other people's shoes, the worse he feels. The target audience is set for young teenagers since big life decisions are made at this point in people's lives, and many people at this age are unsure about what they want to be. Therefore, one aim for this project is to reassure teens, letting them know that they are not alone with these thoughts, and that they shouldn't panic and overthink about their futures. Once the idea was pinned down, I could begin to flow through the production pipeline. To assist with the project, Payton accepted the opportunity to make music, Will offered to help draw backgrounds, and Frankie offered to help draw character post sheets. To begin, a script for the story was formed in Microsoft Word. This would put the idea into perspective, giving it a beginning, middle, and end. It had a lot of changes during production, which was very annoying to apply, but worth it in the long term. Here, I decided that the shapeshifter would morph between the lives of 5 characters with unique roles. Designing these characters is what came next. The direction of the art style was inspired by the game Hollow Knight, specifically the shade characters. Simple silhouette designs with eerie white eyes and outlined accessories would be suitable for animating shapeshifter transformations. Rounded edges would be in every design choice because I didn't want the theme to be scary like the shades in Hollow Knight. To find the right designs for each character, concept artwork was made in Adobe Photoshop. The concept for the shapeshifter is a mixture of a triangle, representing the stereotypical mischievous side of a shapeshifter, and a circle, portraying the innocence of the character, as well as his shortness. The tear would form and display his sadness with each experience, and his solid black colour would stand out from every other character, whose palettes would blend in with each colour scheme. The worker's design choice was inspired by Disney's short film, Inner Workings, with the generic square head, square glasses, joined onto a body with skinny limbs. The tie adds to the business look. The boss, on the other hand, has a much more threatening look, with pointy horns and narrow eyes, but the horns are still rounded to match the design choice. This, with a tie and a name tag, gives him visible authority over the worker. The celebrity needed a cute and fashionable look. A slim, round shape, accompanied with a star necklace, is what made this character stand out as a pop star. The manager had a major change during production. Originally, he was going to be a fat, rich guy who just laid on a pile of money, but later, he was given a monocle and a cigarette to represent the cliché fat corporate cat, also known as the celebrity's manager. And finally, the bulky firefighter. Strong and brave, with a fire icon on his thick safety helmet. Looking back, I wish I could spend more time on this design, and maybe think of more design aspects for him, such as clothing. This could better represent that he is a firefighter. Once I settled on each design, I moved on to turnarounds and finally pose sheets with Frankie. Following this, I drew a storyboard in Photoshop to visually represent the script. This would plan how backgrounds, camera angles, and character movements would look in the final animation. Then, the animatic was produced to display further visuals and timings. Before heading into the final animation, lots of changes were made for these 2 aspects. This is because I wanted the story to make as much sense as possible to the audience. The manager's scene, previously known as just the rich guy, was the only scene out of place in the original animatic. So because this didn't really make much sense to viewers, the scene was reworked so he was inside a limousine instead. This way, he would be able to see the firefighter in action outside of his window. Before animating, some background artwork was designed by Will. The rest of the backgrounds were drawn by me during the animation process. They followed the concept of using simple blackline art and a desaturated colour palette displayed in the colour script of the project. Backgrounds will be designed on a multi-plane if scenes had camera movements including parallaxing, or aspects that were in front of animated segments. With everything in place, I began to animate throughout April. The style was a mixture of puppet and traditional animation created in Toon Boom Harmony. Character rigs were made using the construction sheets, including nodes such as clipping masks that kept the eyes inside the head. They were also used for things like smoothly moving the shadow on these covers. The shadows are only visible in this scene to emphasize the light shining into his dark room. Some scenes were animated frame by frame, whereas others were animated using tweens. Both would look smooth with the use of anticipation and follow through. The most difficult scene to make was the worker carrying the heavy stack of papers. At first, this was animated as a regular walk. However, I wanted to emphasize the weight of the papers he was carrying. So I reanimated the walk, arching his body back. This was because the papers change his center of mass, so he has to compensate for that by leaning backwards and bringing the papers into his chest. Delaying the timings between the strides exaggerated how heavy the papers were too. And to add a bit more life, I added changes in his expression to display signs of struggle. The most fun part to animate was the celebrity transition. In the Animatic, this was supposed to be a cut. However, this might have made viewers confused whether this character was the same as this character. So, I decided to animate a wipe transition with the celebrity as she turned around and struck a pose. This would mean that she would stay in shot, and that viewers would know that this is the shapeshifter. The slight overshoot gives off a nice bouncy impact for when she hits the stage. This transition is very satisfying to watch, and is an improvement of a similar transition I made in one of my personal projects in 2020. Another fun part to animate was the morph between the worker and the boss. Because of Muse's style, I could experiment with these transformations. In the Animatic, I planned for the horns to sprout from his head, whereas in the final animation, the horns fold out of his head. One obstacle with this scene was when it cuts away and cuts back. Most viewers thought that this was back to the original boss, instead of the shapeshifter as the boss. So to get around this, I decided to zoom the camera out to reveal that the worker has now become the boss. This made the scene much more understandable. Now that I have experience with nodes in Toon Boom, blur nodes were added to some scenes to create a shift in focus like this one, which is used in films such as Wallace and Gromit. I would want to improve this project by giving the eyes a slight glow to them to improve the aesthetic. I would want to experiment even more than this by searching through other nodes that I could use to improve the animation. Overall, since I love animating, this was my favourite part of the project because I was able to bring this idea to life. 2 music compositions were created by Payton, one of which was for the Animatic, a demo reel of what the final soundtrack might sound like, and the second one was the final soundtrack.
I'm Payton Petkus, the composer for Muse. Muse changes into different shapes, into different people, but he still remains the same person. And I wanted the main theme for the short to reflect that. And so the theme does the same thing. We have this very F note, and it tries going up, it tries changing, but then it goes back to it. Then it tries changing even more, and then it goes back to it, until it's trying to go down, but it still goes back to that F. It keeps on trying to change, despite remaining the same, always falling back on that F, because he is still the same creature, despite being in other people's bodies. The tear motif is with a violin or a cello, and it typically goes like this. That appears every time he starts crying or tearing up, and I thought it'd be very important to emphasize. The most important part of the tear theme is the fact that it ends on this kind of very sad note. And this pays off in the end when it sounds very happy. So yeah, that's my composer's breakdown for the music in Muse.
Moving the project into Adobe Premiere Pro allowed me to stitch together the separate animated scenes and alter some timings. I took the opportunity to add lighting and shading to improve the overall look. The music and credits were also added, as well as an animated title sequence at the beginning. The word Muse forming onto screen matches the aesthetic of the project, since the story is about a shapeshifter and silhouette characters. And this marked the end of production! But promoting the project was a whole nother process. I separated these into 4 segments. Trailers gave a sneak peek to the project, the teaser was to announce Muse, and the official trailer was to give more information about the film. Each had their own unique animation aspects. Posters were made and used as covers for these trailers. The shapeshifter was given his own Twitter account as a form of transmedia. This is where he would post weekly updates on his life leading up to the film, a prequel to Muse. Each post would include some original artwork for Muse, as well as tell the story on how he got so worried. Each drawing was a lengthy process, but it was very fun to play with the style of Muse. Merchandise is a way for fans to show their support, as well as gaining something nice in return. These Muse-themed items are all custom made and available now. Lastly, there's the website, which links to all of the other promotional materials. This goes through how and why the project was made, as well as give updates on production. This included style frames, animation tests, and concept art. Additional resources, such as an electronic press kit, and Production Bible can be downloaded from here too. There was even a page for Muse artwork created by some very kind fans of the project. Beyond promotion, there are plans to submit to festivals too. I put together a list of film festivals that stood out to me. I plan to add more festivals in the future. The cost of some of these are a lot higher than I expected. This made me want to develop my own budget for the project. This is how much it would cost if Muse was a realistic production, and that's excluding the submission costs for film festivals. That was how Muse was created. Every aspect of production was completed either on time or early, and since this was a solo-directed project, I am very proud of my time management and determination to complete it. I have spent 8 long months building this project from the ground up, and I am glad you get to see the result of all of the hard work me and my assistants put into this. Thank you for watching!